Wait. There was one question I saw that I want. They said, would you be mad if, or like, feel some type of way if I move on, like, to another?
You already moved on.
Okay, we're asking now.
No.
Like, if I was to go be in a whole relationship with somebody else, you wouldn't care?
You already did it.
I've never been in a relationship.
Yeah, you were.
No, I wasn't.
Just because they didn't know about it doesn't mean you weren't in a relationship. Okay. While I was in prison, you was in a relationship with someone.
No, I wasn't.
Just let them.
We're not talking about that. We were just asking about if you would care.
Oh, okay.
It's a simple yes.
Oh, okay.
So he said,
okay.
So he said no, y'all. Anyway, he said, which of the girls what?
So you just let you weren't in a relationship?
What was your question?
You guys didn't go out on dates or nothing? You just easy like that, huh? Huh?
Nobody was ready for this. Not the chat, not the internet, and definitely not the people who thought today would be just another live. 1 second the screen looks like your usual chaotic stream, the next second boom everything stops. Chrisean Jr falls on camera, the energy flips, the comments explode, and suddenly the word CPS is flying around the internet like a fire alarm nobody can shut off. This wasn't a rumor creeping through blogs. This wasn't a delayed clip, reposted by a T-page. This happened live, unfiltered, no edits, no PR cleanup, no warning label. If the Kardashians think their drama is intense, this makes it look like a daytime soap with a laugh track, and just when you think it can't spiral further, Blueface jumps in like a man who's had enough of everyone, drags Jaidyn into the conversation, and sends a not-so-subtle message to Stunna that sounds less like advice and more like a warning shot. The internet didn't just react, it combusted. Memes spawned in real time. Think pieces popped up before the stream even ended. And suddenly, everybody became an expert, a detective, and a judge with a Wi-Fi connection. This didn't feel like entertainment anymore. This felt like a moment that changed everything. And once you see how fast this escalates, you'll understand why people are saying there's no going back from this one. The moment didn't announce itself with sirens or dramatic music. It arrived quietly, almost casually, which somehow made it worse. 1 second the live was rolling like any other chaotic broadcast. The next second everything froze in the collective mind of the internet. Chrisean Jr fell on camera, and that single moment cracked the entire room wide open. The chat didn't just react, it malfunctioned. Emojis turned into panic. Jokes evaporated. Comments started racing each other like people sprinting toward an accident they know they shouldn't look at but can't stop watching. What made this hit harder wasn't just the fall itself, but the fact that it happened live. No edits. No filters. No opportunity for anyone to step in later and say, "You didn't see what you think you saw." This wasn't a blurry clip reposted by a gossip page 3 days later with dramatic captions. This was raw, real-time chaos, and the internet treats those moments like breaking news mixed with bloodsport. Screenshots were taken before the stream even caught up to itself. Clips were circulating while the live was still running, which tells you everything about how fast this spiraled. Almost immediately, people started replaying the moment like amateur detectives. Slow motion edits appeared within minutes. Arrows, circles, captions, and think piece energy flooded timelines. Everyone suddenly became an expert on what should have happened, what shouldn't have happened, and who was to blame. And then that 3-letter acronym dropped into the conversation like a grenade. CPS. No confirmation, no official statement. Just a word that carries enough weight to flip the entire narrative upside down. Once CPS enters the chat, the tone changes. Permanently. It's no longer just gossip. It's no longer just messy celebrity drama. Now it's serious, and everyone knows it. Viewers weren't just reacting to the fall anymore. They were reacting to the implications. Old clips resurfaced instantly. Past controversies got dragged out of storage like receipts people had been saving for this exact moment. Suddenly, every argument about parenting, responsibility, and instability felt like it had found a new centerpiece. And here's where the internet does what it always does best and worst at the same time. It starts connecting dots whether they belong together or not. People weren't just talking about what happened on the live. They were talking about patterns. They were talking about history. They were talking about vibes. Because in internet court, vibes count as evidence, and past chaos is always admissible. As the comments piled up, the silence on screen became louder than any screaming match ever could. That pause after the fall felt endless, even if it only lasted seconds. You could feel the shift through the screen. The energy was no longer playful, no longer chaotic fun, no longer meme-ready. It was tense, uncomfortable, and heavy in a way that doesn't wash off easily. This was the kind of moment that makes people stop laughing and start asking questions they don't actually want the answers to. Then came the reaction wave. Not from officials, not from statements, from the public. Fans split into camps almost instantly. One side went full protective mode, insisting accidents happen, kids fall, and the internet needed to relax. The other side went straight into alarm mode, arguing this wasn't just about one moment, but about everything that led up to it. And in the middle were the people who didn't know what to think but couldn't look away, because uncertainty is the internet's favorite fuel. And just when the situation couldn't get more volatile, Blueface entered the storyline like gasoline on a fire. Because Blueface doesn't do quiet concern. He doesn't do subtle commentary. He does statements that sound like verbal grenades tossed into already burning rooms. His response didn't calm anything down. It escalated it. The tone shifted from concern to confrontation in record time. Instead of letting the moment breathe, Blueface dragged Jaidyn directly into the mess, and the internet latched onto that immediately. Now it wasn't just about the fall. It wasn't just about CPS rumors. It was about family dynamics, finger pointing, and who gets blamed when things go wrong publicly. His words didn't sound like damage control. They sounded like frustration finally snapping after being stretched too thin for too long. And then there was Stunna. The name dropped like a warning label slapped onto the conversation. Blueface didn't sound like he was making a casual comment. He sounded like he was drawing a line in the sand. The kind of line that says, "Stay where you are, or this gets ugly." The internet heard it loud and clear, and immediately started speculating what that warning actually meant. Was it about involvement, boundaries, silence, control? Nobody knew. But everyone had theories. At this point, the situation had officially mutated. What began as a shocking live moment turned into a multi-front drama involving parenting concerns, Yexies, associates, and power dynamics. The fall was no longer the headline. The reactions were. And reactions create consequences faster than facts ever do online. T-pages went into overdrive. Timelines refreshed every 10 seconds. People who hadn't watched the live suddenly had strong opinions about it. That's how you know something has crossed into viral territory. When people start reacting to reactions instead of the original event, the story is already out of control. And this one was sprinting downhill with no brakes. What made this especially explosive was the lack of immediate clarity. No clean explanation. No quick reassurance that shut everything down. Just silence, speculation, and increasingly loud voices filling the gap. In the absence of answers, the internet invents its own, and those invented answers tend to be the most dramatic ones possible. By the time the dust even pretended to settle, one thing was clear. This wasn't going to be brushed off as another messy live. This felt different, heavier, stickier, the kind of situation that doesn't fade after 24 hours but lingers, resurfaces, and reshapes how people see everyone involved. And if this was only the beginning, the fallout was about to get much uglier, because once the internet decides a moment is bigger than a moment, it stops watching and starts digging. And when digging starts, nobody comes out clean. Once the moment left the live and hit the wider internet, the chaos multiplied like it was fed after midnight. This is the phase where things stop being about what actually happened and start being about how people feel about it. And feelings online travel faster than facts ever could. The fall was already clipped, reposted, slowed down, zoomed in, zoomed out, and dissected like it was a crime documentary that dropped at midnight on Netflix. Every frame became a talking point. Every pause became suspicious. Every movement was Overanalyzed by people who suddenly believed they were experts in everything from child safety to body language psychology. Memes showed up almost immediately, which is how you know the internet was already desensitizing itself. One side of the timeline was panicking, the other side was cracking jokes, and both sides were feeding the algorithm at the same time. That's the darkest part of viral culture. Serious moments don't stay serious for long. They get chewed up, remixed, and spat back out as entertainment before anyone even agrees on what they just watched. Celebrity reactions poured in too, though most of them were indirect. Nobody wanted to say names outright, but the subtweets were loud. You know the kind. Vague posts about protecting kids, accountability, and people needing help, written just carefully enough to avoid lawsuits but messy enough to fuel speculation. Influencers with no connection to the situation suddenly felt morally obligated to weigh in, because nothing boosts engagement like standing on a soapbox during someone else's crisis. Meanwhile, Blueface's words kept echoing. People replayed his statements over and over, trying to decode tone, intention, and subtext like it was a rap verse hiding subliminals. Was he angry, defensive, tired, all of the above? The internet decided it didn't matter. What mattered was that he spoke, and when he spoke, he didn't sound like someone trying to calm the storm. He sounded like someone drawing battle lines, dragging Jaidyn into the conversation turned out to be gasoline on an already raging fire. Fans immediately split into factions, each one convinced they understood the real dynamics better than the people actually involved. Some accused him of deflecting blame. Others said he was finally saying what needed to be said. And then there were the people who didn't care about the truth at all and just wanted to watch the mess expand, because chaos is the internet's favorite genre, and Stunna being put on notice added a whole new layer of intrigue. That phrase alone launched 1,000 conspiracy theories. People debated whether it was a warning, a threat, or just performative talk meant to scare someone into silence. Screenshots of old interactions resurfaced. Old beefs were recontextualized. Suddenly, moments from months ago were being treated like foreshadowing in a poorly written drama series that somehow keeps getting renewed. What really pushed this into overdrive was how fast public opinion hardened. Within hours, people weren't just reacting. They had already chosen sides. Nuance disappeared entirely. Either you were blindly defending or fake concerned for clout. There was no middle ground. Anyone who tried to inject balance into the conversation got dragged by both sides for not picking a lane aggressively enough. That's when you know the internet has stopped caring about solutions and started caring about winning arguments. TikTok amplified everything tenfold. Short clips stripped of context spread like wildfire. Captions screamed accusations in all caps, because subtlety doesn't go viral. Sound effects, dramatic music, and fake countdowns turned the situation into a spectacle. And the more sensational the framing, the more views it got. Serious concern became secondary to engagement metrics, and that alone tells you how warped the entire process is. At the same time, defenders started pushing back hard. They argued that accidents happen, that kids fall every day, and that turning one moment into a full-blown moral indictment was reckless. They accused critics of exploiting a scary situation for clicks and validation. And they weren't wrong either. The truth, as always, sat somewhere in the uncomfortable middle that nobody online wanted to occupy. What made this phase especially volatile was the speed. There was no cooling off period. No pause to reflect. The story didn't get a chance to breathe before it was buried under layers of commentary. And commentary has consequences. Brands pay attention. Platforms pay attention. Authorities pay attention when enough noise gets made, regardless of whether that noise is accurate or not. By now, the narrative had completely outgrown the original incident. It wasn't just about a fall. It was about parenting under a microscope, celebrity dysfunction, and the internet's obsession with watching people unravel in real time. Comparisons flew everywhere. People dragged in unrelated scandals, saying things like, "This reminds me of when," as if every messy situation belongs in the same box. And through all of this, the central figures stayed mostly silent, which only made things worse. Silence online is never interpreted as neutrality. It's interpreted as guilt, fear, or strategy. Every hour without a statement became its own headline. Every delay fueled another round of speculation. And speculation online doesn't fade. It mutates. By the end of this phase, one thing was undeniable. The internet had fully claimed the story. It no longer belonged to the people involved. It belonged to timelines, comment sections, and reaction videos monetized within hours. And once a situation reaches that point, the fallout becomes inevitable, because the internet doesn't move on quietly. It moves on only after it extracts something from the chaos. And in this case, it was clearly gearing up to extract consequences. This is the stage where the smoke clears just enough for everyone to realize something permanent has changed. The jokes slow down, the memes lose momentum, and what's left is the uncomfortable aftertaste of a moment that went too far to be undone. Because once a situation reaches this level of public scrutiny, there's no rewind button, no apology tour strong enough to erase screenshots, no clarification long enough to outrun suspicion. The internet doesn't forget, it catalogs reputation. Damage doesn't arrive all at once. It leaks in slowly, like water seeping into cracks you didn't even know were there. For Chrisean, the conversation shifted from chaos to credibility. People weren't just watching anymore. They were judging. Every future move started getting measured against this moment. Every post, every live, every appearance came with a silent asterisk attached to it, like the internet whispering, "Yeah, but remember that one time." And the cruel part is that once public perception tilts, it takes on a life of its own. Even neutral actions start getting interpreted through a darker lens. What used to be brushed off as on-brand chaos suddenly looked different, louder, riskier, less funny. The same energy that once built engagement now felt like it was working against her, because the audience decided the stakes had changed. Blueface didn't escape the fallout either. His reaction, meant or not, became part of the permanent record. People dissected his words not just for what he said, but for what they believed he meant. Some saw a man trying to take control of a spiraling situation. Others saw deflection dressed up as authority. Either way, his involvement ensured that this story wouldn't stay contained. It expanded outward, pulling everyone connected into the blast radius. Jaidyn's name being dragged into the narrative added another layer of tension. She didn't just become a side character. She became a symbol in the debate. To some, she represented stability. To others, she was unfairly pulled into a mess she didn't create. And the internet, being the internet, treated her like a character in a drama instead of a real person dealing with real consequences. That's the cost of proximity in viral scandals. Even silence becomes suspicious. Then there's Stunna. Being put on notice might sound like internet theatrics, but words like that linger. They invite speculation. They encourage people to read between lines that may not even exist. Suddenly, every interaction gets reanalyzed. Every past association gets reframed as potential involvement. It's like being tagged in a post you never asked to be part of, except this tag comes with a million eyeballs and zero context. Behind the scenes, the ripple effects start stacking up. Platforms get nervous. Sponsors grow cautious. People who once answered calls suddenly let them go to voicemail. That's how you know a scandal has crossed from entertainment into liability. Nobody says it out loud, but the shift is obvious. Opportunities don't disappear dramatically. They quietly stop appearing, and then there's the audience fatigue. Not boredom, judgment fatigue. The kind where viewers stop rooting and start observing from a distance. That's a dangerous place to be in the attention economy. Because when people stop emotionally investing and start coldly analyzing, empathy dries up. What's left is critique, skepticism, and an appetite for the next revelation. This is also where the narrative hardens. Early on, stories are flexible. There's room for explanations, clarifications, and alternate perspectives. But once the internet decides what a moment represents, that meaning sticks. This moment became shorthand, a reference point, a remember. When that gets brought up anytime someone wants to question credibility or responsibility, And here's the part nobody likes to talk about. The internet doesn't actually want resolution. It wants continuity. It wants the story to evolve, not end. Closure doesn't trend. New chapters do. So even if nothing else happens, people will keep watching like something might happen. And that anticipation alone keeps the pressure alive. For Chrisean, the path forward now comes with conditions. Everything feels monitored. Every move feels watched. And whether that's fair or not doesn't matter, because fairness isn't a requirement for public opinion. Perception is. And perception has already been shaped by millions of eyes reacting at once. For Blueface, this moment reinforces an image he can't quite outrun. The loudest voice in the room, the catalyst, the accelerant. Whether he intended to escalate or not, the result is the same. His words added weight, and weight changes how stories fall. And for everyone else orbiting this situation, the lesson is brutal but clear. When you're connected to chaos, you don't get to choose which moments define you. The internet chooses. For you, one live, one clip, one reaction, and suddenly your name is part of a narrative you never agreed to star in. As the dust settles, curiosity doesn't fade, it sharpens. People start asking what happens next. Will there be statements? Will there be consequences? Will there be silence? And silence, as always, will speak louder than anything else, because this didn't end with a fall. It didn't end with a warning. It didn't even end with the internet moving on to the next scandal. This ended with a shift. A reminder that some moments don't just go viral, they change trajectories. And this is the part where the screen fades, but the chaos doesn't. Because if there's one thing the internet has proven over and over again, it's that scandals don't end, they reload. Today it's a live that goes left in real time. Tomorrow it's a cryptic post, a deleted story, or a misunderstood statement that somehow makes everything worse. If you think this was the final chapter, you haven't been paying attention. So don't just sit there watching this unfold like background noise. Get involved. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because everybody saw something different, and the truth online usually lives somewhere between 10 arguments and one spicy take. Smash that like button like it owes you money for emotional damages, because the algorithm only respects chaos when it's properly fed. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately, because this channel doesn't do quiet weeks. This is where the mess gets decoded, the narratives get flipped, and the stuff nobody wants to say out loud gets dragged into the light with receipts and sarcasm. While other channels tiptoe around the drama, we sprint straight into it with a flashlight and a sense of humor sharp enough to cut through the noise. And let's be real, if you blink during this situation, you already missed 3 plot twists. That's why you need to stay locked in right here, where every viral moment gets broken down, every power move gets questioned, and every "that's not what happened" gets side-eyed into oblivion, because the internet never sleeps, the drama never apologizes, and the next scandal is already loading. And when it drops, you already know where to be. Welcome to Fame Ripple, where one moment turns into waves,